Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Ecosystem Aces. I'm Chip Rodgers, Chief Partner Officer at WorkSpan, and I'm really excited to be joined today by Matt Gray. Matt is Global Vice President of Partnerships and Alliances at Tealium. Matt, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me today, Chip.
Yeah, so heading into the Labor Day weekend here, right? And on a Friday, just heading into the holiday weekend. So I think we're all just a little bit chill. So, Matt, it's great to have you on. Just by way of introduction, Matt is heads up the partner organization at Tealium. And gosh, Matt, I think you've been at Tealium for almost 5 years now. And prior to that, with New Relic and MuleSoft and Boomi, so you've hit a lot of the great technology companies in the space, and just great to have you on.
Well, thanks, Chip. It's a pleasure to be here. I mean, it's crazy when you think about like the logos or the names you mentioned. I mean, I've been so fortunate, one, just to have a diverse career path, right? It's been really exciting to think about not only the technology companies that I've been a part of, but I mean, I began my journey years ago as a 4GL programmer. So I started with, really building out the way in which you would connect with ERP systems and pull data to do reporting. And you build these basic things. And that kind of led me to understand how data can be used to provide insight for an organization. And very quickly, got to learn about analytics and learn about the importance of answering tough questions for executives. So over the past 2 decades plus, it's been a fun journey. It's been a really fun ride to get to go from, these startups through the motion of IPO, through the motion of acquisition, through the motion of different patterns in their existence, to really see what that successful exit or that successful conclusion of the business is. But yeah, I mean, the last couple of stops that I've had, I've been with Tealium for about a little over 4 years at this point. But prior to that, was very fortunate to be able to work with great companies like New Relic, MuleSoft, Boomi. Was acquired by IBM a couple of times. Was a partner, part of HP for 3 years, and was also acquired by Dell once. So it's been a very interesting ride, to say the least, and I hope it keeps on going.
Yeah, interesting. Boomi's journey, because it was Boomi, and then a lot of people know it by Dell Boomi because it was Dell Boomi for a long time, but now it's Boomi again, and so it's interesting that sort of pattern, sort of in and out of the corporate world.
Yeah, well, and you think too, like, what is it that's exciting about a company like a Boomi? And for those who know Boomi today, the Boomi today isn't what the Boomi was whenever I was there.
Mm-hmm.
What we were doing was a SaaS-based integration platform as a service. It was very unconventional. It's very disruptive because the conversation was, oh, wait, so your product doesn't get installed in my data center? Your product runs in the cloud? Like, what does that mean? Where does the data go? So it was a very interesting thing to think about, not only like, how do you start a conversation in a completely new direction, but with new technology, new capability. And now it's kind of mainstream to be able to move data between systems. You don't think twice about where those systems are. But at the time, it was a very novel way to look at integration and those needs. So it was a lot of fun. Those people that were part of the original Boomi cohort when we were acquired by Dell, some of my most favorite coworkers of all time, because just a fun corporate mentality. The CEO and founder, Rick Nucci, was just such an amazing leader for a small company that was disrupting the industry. And we had a really good time. I still keep in touch with all those people and see them relatively regularly.
It's interesting. I actually, so we have a little bit of a common history. I got to know Rick a little bit because I was, when I was with SAP, I was based in Philadelphia. So got to know Rick sort of through the tech scene in Philly at the time. So
yeah, and it was fun. I mean, we had a really fun journey. But the tech scene in Philly was alive and well at that time. But, coming from California, I was like, oh, there's a tech scene in Philly I didn't know about, and then learned about it. And a lot of great VC participants and a lot of great executives live in that area. And the networks are very deep there. And there's so much industry in the Northeast corridor that there's a lot of value of that area. And it was a fun place to work and a fun stop along the way.
It's interesting that because I a lot of times, we're talking about, partnerships and bringing companies together and creating solutions together, and then bringing those solutions to market a lot of times. So Boomi was really on the front end of that, because I'll say a lot of times, the technology, now that everything's in the cloud, right? And you can connect things together very much more easily than you ever could. And so the technology is there, but a lot of our challenge is bringing the business along to be able to get the business teams, the marketing teams, the product teams, the sales teams connected together to partner with these solutions that we built, that are connected through capabilities like Boomi, right?
Yeah. And integration is just kind of that backbone. It's kind of the underappreciated technology that's a workhorse of, always called plumbing. It is, without it functioning properly, the business comes to a grinding halt relatively fast. If you can't do quote to cash, you can't integrate the systems together when you're trying to close a deal. I mean, the business can't function if you can't process an order and ship it. These are the things that people take for granted when everything's operating smoothly. But integration has been such a fun thing for me to work with. And like the first technology I was working with when I was doing 4GL programming, we were just doing like, I don't know if this is a throwback, but like ABAP coding and other things to be able to look at like
SAP.
LSMW and other things to move data into SAP and pull data out of SAP and where are you going to put it. And I got root access into some AIX systems or DEX systems at big companies because I was a person that could get into these systems. And obviously I took it very seriously, but the amount of scrutiny now on anything like that, you could never do it. But it was getting the data out. And I had studied a bit with Ralph Kimball, the guy that had done the star schema or the corporate information factory. And it was Ralph Kimball and Bill Inman. And those were the two guys that really said how to do data warehousing. So like integration back then was you've got your OLTP system and you got to pull the data out of it and you got to put it somewhere and you got to reorganize it in fact in star schema tables or multiple tables to be able to have a new way to look at that same data. And so there were new players that came on the scene. I remember when I first saw Informatica and seeing how that product worked, and it was this ETL technology. And what was interesting is I had sat down on a plane flight. I was coming out to California to see my girlfriend, now wife, mother of our kids. And I was out and we got delayed on a flight coming from Denver to San Francisco and sat next to the CEO of Sagent Technology, a guy named Ken Gardner, on the flight. Nothing in common. We're just chatting about stuff. By the end of the flight, we were delayed. We had other things. He was like, I really would like you to come work for me. My company does integration. And if you're doing consulting in this, you could probably be a benefit to our org. 6 months later, I'm here in Silicon Valley and I'm working for him in his org, but I wasn't a consultant. I ended up going into sales engineering. And so being around like that movement of ETL and then the EDI and all the different things that were moving around for how you could start to integrate systems was where I got that foundation of understanding how that information moved. But really the only movement, that we would look at was, if we're putting this in place, what question is it answering? And what are we doing to help the business? And so it was just a lot of fun for me. I spent a lot of time in the tech world and got a chance to go to a company that was a startup after. So Sagent was a sales engineer, and then I went to a company called Essential after Sagent got bought by a company called Group One. Essential, as anyone knows, was the spin out of Informix for a long time ago, and that ended up getting bought by IBM. And so IBM was great. They put it into their portfolio of products, and the product they had as data stage, it moved on. But a bunch of people I worked with there were like, come down the street in Boston, we're doing a data warehouse appliance company. And that was a company called Netezza. And that grew, blew up, and then ended up getting acquired by IBM. So I've been very close to the data for a very long time. And it's just neat to see how that is always in the center of the value exchange between a business and technology. Is what does it do with the data and how does it help me?
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so we're geeking out on technology. We got to talk about partnerships.
Totally.
So this has been fun. So Matt, tell us a little bit about the Tealium and the work that you and your team are doing at Tealium.
Yeah, so I mean, in a nutshell, it's been 4 years. I work for our Chief Revenue Officer, Ted Purcell, and we have our CEO, Jeff Lunsford. When I interviewed with Tealium, oh gosh, it was almost 5 years ago that I started my sort of interview process with them. I remember hearing from them that partners were sacred, right? And you hear this from a lot of times. Partners are of strategic importance and other things. But it was very interesting to see that partners were indeed highly valued by our C-suite, highly valued by the board. So I currently run as the Global Vice President of Partnership and Alliances, the Global Partnerships org. And it's spread across, 3 main theaters, and it's got, people in multiple countries. And our goal, right, as a team is really to differentiate Tealium as a platform strategically so that we can continue on a journey of unprecedented growth, right? So that's kind of the boilerplate you hear from anyone in a partnerships role is how do I help the company grow? And for those who don't know about Tealium, Tealium connects data so you can connect with your customers. So first party data is what we collect in a neutral way and move that information through a supply chain. So when you're on your phone and you look at a website, and you are then on your laptop and you look at that website, stitching all that information together and wondering why, when you open up a mail app or open up a social like Meta, Facebook, Instagram, why you see all those ads that are relevant to what your search was. That's basically what we help provide, right? So when you think about that as kind of a core capability, it has integration in it and it has those things. But whenever I came aboard, I was basically asked to build out a strategy for the next phase of growth for the company. And the company, Tealium, was, going through its $100 million of cumulative ARR, or CAR, as we call it, at the time, and looking at how can we drive strategic alignment and growth, and what do we need to do to build scalable and durable partnerships was kind of at the core of what I was asked to do. And so I came aboard, and having that deep technical knowledge and being able to geek out on things helped me kind of just get under the hood of what it is we were doing to understand what's the actual technology, what does it do, and then how do we start to define a strategy. And so kind of the first thing that I found was there wasn't really a strategy in place, right? Because you go from those initial phases of a company, you just got to survive. Then you get into that initial build mode where you're just trying to hustle to get those deals. And then when you want to scale, you've got to be able to put more formidable things in place. And so, I had lunch with our founder this week, and he said, I love that you've been able to be the scale guy and get these things going, because you need different types of partner programs at different stages. And so for me, it was really building out scalable programs. So what we started with was looking at the basic state of the market and kind of where we were to determine what do we need to do. So I went around and interviewed obviously the CEO, the founder, the head of product, the different people associated with the roles within the company, and just trying to determine what are we trying to do? What are we trying to do to maximize shareholder growth? How are we going to build this out? And then I interviewed all our top partners. So in the first 60 days, I really was on a listening tour and looking at what the market shifts were and understanding what the needs were of the org to be able to add, shareholder value really came down to a couple of things. Externally, we had to acquire new customers and retain and grow existing customers. And internally, we had to become more efficient and we had to improve our execution capability. And those things sound really obvious, but when you really look at how you do it and how you start to really build out from there, there wasn't anything in place to really be a framework to help guide me on what the corporate standard was, because we're a growing company. There's a lot of things. So our CRO had really put in a go-to-market strategy, which was value-based selling, and it's very much strategic and be aligned with the enterprise. So that's fantastic. Corporate strategy is we need to be the next big SaaS company, and we're going to take on this sector of MarTech, and we're going to be defining a new space called customer data platforms. And then you look at the product strategy, and that product strategy was, okay, we started in tag management, which is the ability to collect things client side. We then shifted into server side, where you're doing event processing. And then you start to look at audience activation at scale. And that's really what a customer data platform does. The product strategy was be the dominant player in this market. So you take those three different ideas, and for me, you've got to translate that strategy into an execution framework to be able to build a program.
Right.
And so really just starting there was like, well, what do we want the business to see us do? And there's an interesting book out there that's called Playing to Win. And it's about how strategy really works. I don't know if you're familiar with it or ever heard of it, but we used it at New Relic to really define what our business teams were doing. And it would map out, take your KPIs, which are those goals and aspirations, and then you map out kind of where are we going to spend our time, what designates a win, what's the kit required to get there, and then what are the systems we're going to need so we can showcase that we're actually on track, behind or ahead of where we need to be. And so the first, I don't know, it was like the first quarter and a half, I was just trying to assess what the company needed me to do and look at the team that I had in place to determine, could I do it with the team, and what do we need to do to get there?
And so how has that manifest now 4.5 years later?
Well, it's been crazy because we started with like the first goals, right? We looked at where are we at in our current state of partnerships. And like when you look at individuals operating as individuals in their region and performing based on motivation that's financially driven and incentivized for like top line growth, like go source pipeline partner person.
Yeah.
Go do these things. People will behave in the way that their comp dictates, right? So the first thing we had to do is say, okay, we are operating independently. We have to come together. So role definition has to be explicit. So we had to build that unit cohesion around the two types of roles that we found were really valuable. Role one, partner sales manager, you're aligned to an RVP, you're building out and running with 4 to 8 reps, and you're trying to help make sure we're aligned on what we're selling in the region, sub-region, and going after. The second is partner development manager, right? And really saying, okay, you say Google Ads is a partner, how relevant are we to them? You say that Meta is a partner, but how relevant are we to them today, right? So my biggest goal was, okay, first thing we got to do is we got to get relevant with a very short list of people that we consider to be high value. And when we look at our ecosystem, we had several hundred partners that were in it. We had resellers, hundreds of resellers that were in it. But when we looked at the classifications, we had agency partners, we had which are like Omnicom or WPP. They're very specialized to do that marketing side, from the outside creative to the media to the data teams, and they're in those holdco structures. So they're very complicated, very splintered kind of orgs.
Yeah,
that's one big tower. Second tower was GSIs, like an Accenture, a Deloitte, a Capgemini, Cognizant. You put in the names there, Price Waterhouse. It's okay. How much have we done with them? What do we need to do? Then the third pillar was all these tech alliances. And so by putting everything in there, it's like, well, let's pick our top targets and let's become relevant with them very quickly. Second, when we do get their attention, what are we going to talk to them about? we have to have a solution. We have to have a way that we have demonstrated that the technology we provide adds significant value to their platform or adds significant value to their customers. So let's get a
Mhm.
story that's aligned to realized value that comes from our customer base, so we can go to our ecosystem with a solutions-based mindset and start to build out that knowledge to become relevant and to start to have a kind of a purpose. And then that sort of third area of this is when you look at the gaps that those partners have that are maybe going to be in front of the customer when you're not in the room, do they know what to say? Do they know how to position what your technology does appropriately? And are they going to bring you into the right opportunities, or know how to really deliver you when the capabilities needs are at their highest? So building that kind of strategy, right? We're going to roll this out in 2021. We were able to put that in place and also change up the dynamic of the team quite a bit to really get the right type of mindset aboard to be able to help do this. So we this was in the hiring madness of 2021. We were able to really grow the team, up level the team, enhance what we were doing. And so now what I see is I started this journey with a team that was operating as a bunch of individuals, and they were doing a pretty good job getting about 50% of the revenue in the company was somehow associated with the channel in some way, shape, or form, which is a
Yeah.
very high amount.
Right.
The sourced pipeline numbers, some of the things that were there were also very, very interesting to look at. But over the period of these past 4 years, we've taken that roughly 50%, we've taken it up to 90% in terms
Wow.
of the attach rate. And what we see is that attach rate, if you looked at it like a pizza, half of it has the topping on it of sourced and the other half has influenced, which is great because it's not just that the team is chasing around opportunities and trying to attach a partner to it. They're really actively growing and sourcing the business. So I see that the percentage contribution has definitely changed significantly. The revenue side has benefited tremendously from it, but then the relevance of working with these key lighthouse technology companies has gotten us into a position now where we are working in very rare air with some of the largest tech companies on the planet. And so we announced about 2 months ago that we completed a strategic collaboration agreement with AWS. And that to me is such an amazing milestone, because when I joined, AWS had no idea who Tealium was. And most of the folks inside of our org that were in the GTM side had no idea what AWS did. And while we built our product on AWS and only in AWS, the engineering team loved it, but the go-to-market team didn't know how that could benefit them.
What do we do with that? Right.
Yeah. And so to see that, to get a strategic collaboration agreement is a pretty hard thing to do. I mean, there's only 50 software companies on average in 1 year that get one.
Yeah.
Out of 120,000 partners in their ecosystem.
Yeah. No, that's a huge deal. That's a huge deal. Congrats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. I mean, and like I look at that and I'm like, I'm very proud of that. But then the steps to get there, that journey was incredibly complicated. And we had some fantastic people. You met with Justin Davis on the team, who did a amazing job of growing into this role of managing that relationship, building and executing and going. We've had lots of participation from folks around our team around the world. And I look at that. I look at what Google has done. We're very, very advanced in their Google Ads partner program as well. And one of the top providers of signal data. And then for those who don't know, signal data, it's when you place an ad somewhere, how effective was it, right? And with the growing threat of data privacy, with the third-party cookie loss that keeps getting kind of thrown at us, but it keeps getting pulled away, and link deprecation. For those who don't know the space, you want to become more and more anonymous, right? You don't want everyone to track everything. That's why you press the reject all. Well, it works kind of, because your behavioral patterns give away who you are and what you're doing anyway, even if they don't know exactly who you are. But this is where these major advertisers, Meta, the Google team, even like TikTok, Snapchat, their appetite to be able to answer that question for a customer who's an advertiser that says,
Mm-hmm.
I spent $100 million on this platform. What did I get back?
Right.
That's what we can answer. And so being relevant to them meant not just being a partner, but really digging in on when you have a customer that's on stage that's going to talk about what they did with this capability, can we get them to be on stage and will they highlight how this technology actually helped support their business purpose? And we just did our digital velocity events. We did one in London that was very well attended, but to have like a brand like Vodafone on the stage talking about that is massive. And to talk about the ways in which they can leverage these strategic technology providers with a company like Tealium and the business value they're realizing makes our whole go-to-market team look so good. And it showcases the amount of effort that our customer success teams put in, our salespeople put in, our support organization. And it just really shows that we can surround the customer in the right way, but then have relevance with someone that can really amplify that voice makes a huge difference. So,
Yeah.
in 4 years, it's amazing to get to see that.
Yeah, I think it's. I love the and thank you for taking us through that journey, because I love the way that as you were, you know, building the or even thinking about, building a partner program, that it was a lot of it was focused on the partner. Right. What's the value? Why are we relevant to this partner that maybe not even know, like you said, AWS, they didn't even know who Tealium is, right? So how are we making ourselves relevant to those partners to be able to put it into their terms, right? What's important to them and why they should care, why they should partner with us.
Well, and Chip, one of the things I think that I learned a lot by working with the AWS team whenever I was at New Relic, and the speed at which they've gone from 0 through $100 billion in ARR is no accident. I mean, they are focused on the customer. They are customer obsessed. And so I'm a big fan of the way that they've approached the market as the hyperscaler that is really the de facto standard that everyone will say, yeah, the service is like a Kinesis. Well, why do you say that, right? If you're another hyperscaler, it's because everyone knows that one is the one that's the de facto. So when I look at the way that we would look at the ability to build a partnership and start with the fundamental ingredients, Chip, I think this is one thing I found a lot of partner folks I've worked with have stumbled on. They stumbled on the idea or the belief that something is there and not really done the digging to make sure it's there. So like, for example, if you look at the description of a use case from the lens of the customer, right? If we're going to partner with somebody and we work with WorkSpan and we partner with you, we use your technology and we love it, right? It's like, what's the need? Let's just start with that at a very high level. What does the customer need to do between your company and my company first? Tell me what the use case is here for the offering. Now, let's take that use case and then let's look at the target market for the use case and figure out, is it relevant to the broader market? Is it something that addresses the ideal customer profile, the regions, the personas, people that are at a maturity curve level that can benefit? So I now know what the use case is and I know kind of where I can do this. But next, what I see a lot of people overlook is, what is the customer's pain associated to what we've just talked about? Because I've got to be able to say that the customer in the sectors is going to have a repeatable challenge that's tied to pain, and it's limiting their growth or their ability to execute. And that then helps me frame what those outcomes are, right? Because if you say a business outcome or a technical outcome, how do I trace that back to the joint value proposition? Not just say that I can make your world better because of WorkSpan and Tealium working together, right? It's like, if you can distill that down, then you can start to look at, okay, well, what's that market fit for the offering and what are the capabilities you need to highlight it? And then go into the level of, with that understanding, now tell me the differentiators, how you position it, show me evidence in a couple of customers that we've done it. And then what's that joint offering that we do come back with? And then from there, I've got to really distill it down to, I used to joke with people that put it in an SMS message or just send me a text with what the point
Right.
is of it at the end.
Right.
If you can summarize it in one sentence over a mobile phone, a smartphone, then you've kind of nailed the partnership. And
Yeah. Yeah.
that to me has made it really not simple, but it really made it easy to weed out of hundreds of partners in an integration company. Great, we connect with this capability, and that's fantastic. Customers love that we integrate in. However, it doesn't necessarily translate to the customer being motivated to buy more of my product or the customer being motivated by more of my partner's product. It just means that we see a steady state of harmony and there's no objection.
It's awesome. I love it. I love it. Matt, this is fantastic. I'm looking at the time and we're at 30 minutes already. It's been, we could keep going all day, but I do have another, let me ask you this question. This is because I know you've got a lot of background in Gen AI and everything's Gen AI these days. But I'm curious about your thoughts. This is just sort of we're thinking about how Gen AI can be applied to partner roles. Love to hear your thoughts about that, and I don't know if you're even starting to use some capabilities, with your team.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that is top of mind there?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a great question because
Yeah.
I think it's top of mind for everyone. Like, I don't know if your executives are asking like mine are, how do you do more with less, or become more efficient, I think is the better way to phrase it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, how does a capability like generative AI
Yeah.
help, and what does it specifically do? And so when I think about that from a partner perspective, I first have to look at, like, again, I don't know if you've ever read The Innovator's Dilemma or The Innovator's
Sure.
Solution by Clayton
Yeah.
Christensen.
Yeah.
So at Natiza, Clayton Christensen came and talked to us in person. It was very cool to listen. And it was so funny. He talked to us about the milkshake and the point of the milkshake and these other things. And just such a brilliant person that you can follow what he's doing very well by the way that he would describe kind of what the purpose is of something. So if I think about, in this case, looking at generative AI and thinking about what do we need it to do? Well, if I need to enhance my partner experience, or if I need to boost my employee productivity, or if I just need to optimize a business process, where can I apply generative AI to help me out?
Mm-hmm.
And when I think about the use cases of partner assistance for experience, there's just so much we can do to be able to help someone answer questions through
Mm-hmm.
chatbots, virtual assistants, and so on from an external perspective, right? The ability to work through support tickets and other things that pop up for partners that, for example, do deployments or do implementation. There's a lot of stuff we can do in that role. Internally, when we look at content creation, when we look at summarization, the things around conversational or generative text, those things are really relevant for us. But I think where we're really seeing a lot of starting points is optimizing our own processes internally, because I can bring in a capability like a Glean or a U.com or the Q for Business, put something like that in and index a tremendous amount of information that partner people typically sit on. They've got so much information into the whereabouts and what's going on with the partner and their own team and what's happening across the company. But it's very hard for anyone else to find that needle in the haystack. So it's like, if we can make smaller haystacks and have better needles, better identifiable needles, then we can find stuff. So I find for us, optimizing the processes of search, optimizing the processes for being able to go through our day-to-day and do repetitive tasks, that's stuff where we see tremendous value in kind of this initial phase. And then that allows our employees to free up more time to focus on those external types of things and build the business case for how we can utilize technology to service our partner community.
I love it. That's fantastic. We just need to productize it now.
Well, yeah, but it's kind of one of those things. That's what's job security, right? You don't want to productize it because you want to be able to make it so that the partners are still, it's still so valuable, because you just honestly, you can't use the generative capabilities yet in a level. It's like, how many people today are driving around without their hands on the wheel and hop in the backseat of their car?
Right.
There's no one other than the Waymos in San Francisco.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anyone else that's willing to get into their own vehicle and let the auto drive take them somewhere.
Yeah.
So I think we're ways off from it being mainstream, but I do see the ability to help it make my life easier, help me clean up things, help me look through things. Like, it's
Mhm.
amazing to look at Claude from Anthropic, look at Pi, to be able to start to load a document in and say, I need to search for this information, show me what's relevant to this conversation, and for it to be able to pull that back and give you those nuggets without having to read through like a 10K or 10Q in a matter of seconds. So helpful to be able to find the what's in it for me and how's this relevant type
Yeah.
of stuff.
And then contextualize it for your own environment, right? For what's happening inside of your company and with your partners.
Totally. And I think,
Yeah.
the hype cycle we're going through right now and the amount of adoption that's been in place with this, it's just amazing. And it's showing great promise. And there's a lot of confusion amongst AI, machine learning, and generative AI that I think
Yeah.
everyone's using the same buzzwords right now. But when you start to look at how you would have a prompt come in, be deconstructed, matched up to a vector store to find the nearest neighbor, and then pass on to a foundational system like Bedrock to then send to a language model like
Mhm.
Llama to get a response back. It's not simple, but it's something that it's coming, and it's evolving at such a fast pace. That's an area where I think I'm going to see a significant amount of intersection of the Tealium platform that we're working on and the ability to manage that influx of that first party data, the consent, all those different things to feed these systems.
Mhm.
Because if you
Mhm.
feed a generative AI system with the wrong data, then it doesn't have a whole lot of value and it turns off the user.
Yeah.
So as we look at internal usage, I see, for example, spinning up a chatbot, giving it 15,000 documents to go and research, and watching how, like, a FICE database would score what you put in lexically to say, I need this connector. Like, if it's an integration, I'll do a connector. If it picks the wrong document as the top scoring document and then
Mhm.
does the language generation off of that document,
Mhm.
you're
And you
not
get
going to have a
that
good
answer.
answer. And these are things we just find right now that it's like, you got to get that better because people get turned off by it pretty quick.
Yeah. Matt, this is fantastic. Gosh, I really appreciate you. Some really great nuggets for partner folks that are listening, and wow, we've gone long, but I could keep going all day because this has been fascinating. Really appreciate it.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you for your time as well. This has been a lot of fun.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you, Matt, and thank you all for joining in another episode of Ecosystem Aces. And we'll sign off for now and see you next time. Thanks, everybody.